Please give a very, very warm welcome to Professor Peter Titlebaum.
Good evening. So I believe that everybody has a great car story, a bad car story, or a memorable car story. I hit the trifecta and did all of those in the one car experience. Now, you have to understand, I'm 59 years old, and the reason why that's important is this journey that I'm going to take you on, and I'm going to let you hitchhike along the way, is 47 years in the making. So if you think I don't have baggage about this, you'd be wrong. So let me give you a little background on my family. I'm the youngest of three. I have an older brother, 1 year older, and a sister who's 5 years older, Andy and Joni. Now, they were both born in Hartford, Connecticut, and had brown hair and brown eyes. I was born in Seattle, Washington, and had blonde hair and blue eyes, not that you can tell at this point. At the time of this story, we're living in Rochester, New York. Now, you have to understand, as older siblings tend to do, is to pick on the youngest. Well, they did their best to convince me I was adopted. I was the milkman's kid. And, you know, at this point in my life, I'm hoping this is actually true. Now, I have a great relationship with my siblings, but at that time, if they could get a rise out of me, they would. Now, let me tell you about the family car. This is a 1972 Ford baby blue Pinto. Now, fun fact, it was the smallest car that Ford had made since 1907. It did have rack and pinion steering. Oh, always wanted to say that. And for our car aficionados out in the group, you might remember that there's a little bad press about the Ford Pinto. If you got in a rear-end collision, there was a good chance your car was going to burst into flames. You'll be happy to know that there are no flames in this story. However, there is a collision. Now, my brother and sister and I are watching TV. Mom comes in and says, I'm going to run an errand. Who wants to come? And my brother and sister are like, not me. Immediately, they're out. So I get to go on this errand with my mom. Now, first you have to understand, at the time of this story, my sister is 17 years old. It's kind of like having an extra cool parent. She's not going to boss you around, but she's cool because she's already beaten up mom and dad in regards to already made it easier for us. So that's an advantage. Now, my brother was the class clown. To give you an idea how he handled responsibility, if it was time to do the dishes, he'd be in the bathroom. He would wait for all the chores to be done, and then he would come out. So that's our relationship. So now all of a sudden, I get to go on this, quote, errand with my mom. Now, you have to understand a little bit about information about my mom. My mom was a tutor at Brighton High School, and so she got all the students that were either pregnant, got into a car accident, had mono. And so when she sit down with these kids, it would be like, hi, how you doing? How's your life? Before she ever opened up a book. So she was cool, and she made everybody feel like they were the most important people in the world. So to spend time with my mom was not a burden. It was like, this is kind of cool. So we get in the car, and my mom goes, we're going on an adventure. Cool, okay. We're going to Wegmans. Okay, but we're going to buy an ice cream cake to celebrate the end of summer. Okay, this is cool. I can do this. So we get there, no problem. We come out, Houston, we have a problem. There are 2 cars parked next to the Pinto that are so close, my mom can't get in the car. So my mom is debating with herself, and she's like, well, should I go back in the store? Nah, that'll probably take too long. Wait, the ice cream cake's gonna melt. I gotta get this home. So we go behind the car, she unlocks the trunk, she puts the ice cream cake in, she looks at me and says, Peter, you're going to have to back out the car. Now, you gotta think like this. It's like, okay, it's never gonna get any better than this for a 12-year-old. Now, I have to maneuver into the car. I have maybe 18 inches on the passenger side to be able to get in. So I get into the car, everything's going fine. Now I climb over the bucket seat, got myself set, and the first thing I have to do is I have to hand crank down the window. Yes, 1972 hand crank windows were a thing. Now I know what you call somebody who's in the car who's giving you instructions. You call them a backseat driver. I've yet to come up with a word for somebody who's not in the car who's giving you all these instructions. And every instruction is multiple times. This isn't just a one time. This is, oh, this is what you're going to have to do now. So the first instruction she gives me is, you need to move the seat up. Okay, because I'm maybe 4'10" at the time, 4'8". Mom's 5'2", 5'3". So I've got to move the seat. Now, you got to picture, what does that sound like or look like if somebody's watching? Because you can't do this without picturing this. So Mom says, you know, there's a handle in the middle of the seat, got it. You got to pull up on it, got it. You now have to move your tush, hold the wheel, and go like this. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So we now have the seat adjusted. We're doing great. Now she says, you got to push down the handbrake. Okay, push down the handbrake. I am doing great. You know, I'm thinking if my friends could see me now, it's still going to be legendary. Now she says, I need you to start the car. Now, it's in park. You don't have any problems. The car isn't going to go anywhere. Just quickly put your foot on the pedal, pull it back up, turn the key, start the car. I can do this. Now, my driving experience at this point has been, in my imagination, pretend or bumper cars. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever pretended to drive, but I guarantee it wasn't backwards. So understand there's a little issue here. So we are ready, but now she's going to tell me about idle. Okay, idle may make sense to an adult. Idle doesn't make sense to a 12-year-old. So she tells me, you don't keep your foot on the brake, put the car in reverse, then take your foot off the brake. The car will roll back 8 feet. I get in the car, we're good to go. Okay, that's great. I can do that. So I follow the instructions. I put it in reverse. I take my foot off the brake. And guess what? Nothing happens because I'm in a Pinto. The idle isn't too high in a Pinto. So now Mom is like, oh, he's going to have to tap the gas. Now, again, hard concept for a 12-year-old. Tap the gas. I'm like, okay. So I tap the gas. I tap too hard. Car shoots out of the spot. Now, I channel my inner Mario Andretti and turn the wheel. Because I didn't want to hit the cars behind me. At least I was present enough not to do that. So, yay, Peter. However, all I hear is, stop, stop, and then I stop the car. But there's a noise. But it wasn't that kind of noise. Yes, I ran over my mother. Yeah, you think it's funny. So, the next thing I know, my mom appears next to the driver's window. She's a little disheveled at this point. She's trying not to cry. And she says, gritted teeth, Peter, I need you to move over to the passenger side. I'm so sorry. I just profusely apologizing. And she says, I understand. Move over to the passenger side. Okay, so I move over to the passenger side. She gets back in. We start to drive home. We get a mile from the house. Mom pulls over. She is now in Watergate cover-up mode. We have to tell a story to your father. Why? I am not going to tell your father I let a 12-year-old drive the car. So she needs a cover, and I have to swear by it. So I never told my brother, I never told my sister, but there's this other little problem. We still have to tell Dad, and she knows that there's going to be a black and blue mark. So, I've been a coach, I've been an athlete, and I've seen black and blue marks. To this day, I've never seen a black and blue mark like this. It went from just above her ankle to over her hip. And so, she didn't want to get lectured by my father. But you know when you tell a lie, you're terrified of getting caught. Well, as long as this black and blue mark was around, there was a chance we were going to get caught. So, the bright side is now I have to tell you about my father. My father's a traveling salesman. He went all over the state of New York. He sold Evan Bacone, Lee, Faded Glory. So he was gone 4 or 5 times a week. But if he ever had to teach us a lesson, he made sure it was a lesson that we would never forget. So let me give you an example. Around this same time, my brother got caught shoplifting. My father wanted to make sure I don't know how I got involved, but guilt by association, we would learn this lesson. So my father took us to the county jail, had them lock us up for a half hour. This was scared straight before there was scared straight. And after we left, my father is like, well, if you don't get your life together, that's what your life's going to be. So now you understand why my mom had no intention of telling my dad. So we had this black and blue mark that we had to deal with. And I've never seen colors like this before or since. But as long as they went away, our story was good. A month later, the black and blue was gone. She's off the hook, I'm off the hook, things are going well. Until 7 years later, you would think the statute of limitations would have kicked in at this point. I'm in college at the University of Buffalo, and I get an essay assignment that says, I would like you to write an essay with a surprise ending. I'm like, this is going to write itself. There is no problem. So the way it ends is, I know, my mother knows, the teacher knows, please don't tell Dad. And I bring the paper home after my first year in college, which was a mitigated disaster. I wound up transferring the next year, but it was a disaster. And because I'm also dyslexic, college was not an easy thing for me. So here, the son comes home, the baby of the family, who didn't do well in college but has this A paper, and say, Mom, can we show it with Dad? First, Mom turns 3 sheets of white because all of a sudden her perfect alibi is now being thrown off, and I'm now turning state's evidence against her. At this point, Mom has to make a decision. Do I let Peter give Bernie, my dad, the paper, or does she say, no, we can't share it with him? So Mom is in this quandary because it's kind of like there's a hand grenade that is going to blow up. She has to throw herself on the hand grenade because she wants to protect me to make sure I'm okay as a college student. So she agrees to let me share the paper with my father. So she's in the kitchen hiding. My father's in the family room in the Archie Bunker chair. And everybody remembers that nobody could sit in his chair unless it was him. And if you did, he'd kick you out as soon as you came in the room. So my father's sitting in his chair, and I, kind of like dead man walking, I walk up and give him the paper. And so he reads the paper and he goes, loud enough so Mom could hear it, seriously, I can't believe you two. But then he calls me over because he has to give me the paper back. And only quiet enough so I could hear it was, nice job on the paper. Do you really believe I thought that a lady rammed her shopping cart into your mother? Because that's the story that we went with. And so, my mother knows, I know, the teacher knows, my father always knew, and now you know. Thank you.
One more time for Peter Titlebaum.